United Nations will ask countries to reduce their population by 5% each year to combat overpopulation. America subjects students to a test every year and executes those with the lowest scores. The test is called 10 to 241 or the thinning. In Austin, Texas, students are preparing for this test, which will last over 18 hours. Simon and his older sister, Lena, sit at Simon's desk as she tries to guide him. Younger siblings Corinne and Joey sit on the bed and play. Even with Lena's help, Simon becomes frustrated and says he can't study enough before the exam. He asks Lena for something and gives her money in exchange for a contact lens he can use to cheat. When he tries it, it displays the answers to the math exercises in his notebook. Lena reminds him that he has to destroy it after the exam. Lena then receives a call from Dr. Perkins, who informs her that their mother has tried to get discharged from the hospital against the doctor's advice. She asks the doctor to delay it and tells her siblings that she needs to leave. At the hospital, Lena finds her mother, who signs for discharge. The doctor takes Lena aside and reveals that their mother's condition is worsening, although they cannot cure her if she goes home. He explains that making her feel good might be the best thing they can do for her. At the governor's mansion, just 12 hours before the exam, Blake sneaks past some guards in the hallway. He offers to bring them something from the kitchen, but they refuse. Instead, Blake sneaks outside to his car, where he finds his girlfriend Ellie. When Blake insists that this time will be the last time, they stop drinking and remember the test tomorrow. Ellie refuses to talk about it and instead decides to show him something she claims is a secret. She takes him to the Bilski family villa, where they undress and swim in the pool. Later, they kiss in the car until Ellie admits that she's afraid of the test. Vince, one of the bodyguards, catches them and takes Blake back to his father. Blake's father, Governor Redding, lectures his son and tells him that it's okay to have fun, but he needs to choose better times. He insists that Ellie is a distraction that Blake can't afford until he passes tomorrow's exam and the final exam next year. After that, Blake can indulge in distractions for the rest of his life. Redding hugs Blake before leaving the room. 3 hours before the exam, guards patrol a military school surrounded by fences, barbed wire, and security cameras. Students approach the facility, watched by guards wearing black masks. Simon accidentally collides with another student, loses his contact lenses, and can't find them. The guard orders him to keep moving. Black approaches Lena as she watches students greet their parents. He asks for a study guide, but she tells him she gave it away. The guards check the students for cheating devices, and once they catch a guilty student, they chase and catch them with a net. Kellen uses his father's security access to view the images and sends them to a reporter he claims to know named Wendy Banks. Inside the school, Blake tries to console Ellie 15 minutes before the test begins. The guards lock the school. Students gather in classrooms, and the teachers explain the rules. Miss Birch tells her students that she's proud of them and that the questions are difficult but not designed to trick them. She also insists that there's always a chance. Another teacher, Mr. Glass, goes over more rules and reminds the students that the test is an accurate assessment of their abilities. He then orders them to begin, and the classroom lights go out. Each student takes a tablet and starts the test, with the screen illuminating their faces. Teachers warn students when there's 1 minute left and announce the end of the test, while some students show signs of stress, fidget in their seats, cry, or appear in a poor state. In the end, the names of the students who failed are read. With each name called, a student is eliminated. Some cooperate, others pray, some beg for mercy, and others begin to resist. Kellen is relieved to have passed, but Ellie fails. The students congratulate each other and are released to the recreation room. Lena sees Simon being taken away with the students who failed, and Blake calls his father to plead with him to do something to save Ellie, but his father insists they must abide by the law. Blake gets frustrated and slams a locker. He follows them and attacks a guard with a fire extinguisher. He tells Ellie to run, as the guards are distracted, but she is stopped by the crowd and captured. A year later, there are 24 hours left until the exam. Lena sits at a table with her 2 younger siblings, surrounded by boxes, and one of them holds a keepsake showing that their mother has passed away. Miss Birch comes to deliver an extra casserole to the family and tries to console Lena, as Corinne is about to take her first exam. Meanwhile, Blake does exercises in his room. He still has a photo of Ellie hanging on the wall. He starts recording a video on his tablet, saying that if someone is watching, he's already dead. 3 hours before the exam, Lena questions Corinne as she approaches the school and hugs her before sending her inside. Redding discusses the plans for the announcement with Vince, checking if everything is ready. He then inquires about Blake. He tries to convince Blake that there's nothing they can do about Ellie, but Blake rejects him. Blake leaves for school, and Vince sees him drop a package in a mailbox on the way. Lena and Kellen meet at school and talk about this being their last exam. Kellen admits he's nervous but acknowledges that Lena probably isn't due to her intelligence. Instead, she's more concerned about Corin than herself. On the way, Kellen encounters a bully assaulting another boy. He wonders if he's really smart enough to have survived for so long. With 15 minutes before the test, the school is closed again. At the mansion, Vince talks to Redding about his son and shows him the package that Black dropped in the mailbox. Inside is Blake's tablet, where he recorded a video explaining his plan to intentionally fail the test. He asks his son to be taken home, but the school is closed, and he throws a chair in frustration, then tells the guard to leave the room. In a classroom for younger boys, Miss Colley shows her students a video before their first test. The video was created by a company called Asuru Global, and consists of an animated drawing of the Earth explaining why the test was implemented as a way to combat overpopulation. The video shows how other countries have killed the elderly or limited the number of children a couple can have, but America only allows smart kids to live, making it the best country again. Miss Colley steps outside to take a minute for herself, and a guard tells her that someone else can take the test if she's not feeling up to it, but she refuses the offer. She returns to the classroom as the boys finish the video and applaud. She tells them to take the interesting test they've studied for, and the older students begin the test. From the control room, Mason King watches them and answers a call. Black finishes his test early in class, and Mr. Glass notices. After the test ends, Miss Colley tells the students to stand and follow the leader if their name is called. Teachers read the names of the students who failed, including Nathan, Sarah, and Lena, but not Black. Mason calls the mayor to confirm the transfer was successful and that Black is safe. The mayor then approves the execution. Miss Birch rushes to intercept a guard and insists that Lena is the best student she's ever had and can't believe she didn't pass. The guard questions his superiors, but they insist that there's no problem and tell him to send Lena away. The teacher holds Lena back for a moment and gives her a key, reminding her that there's always a chance and telling her to go. In the recreation room, the students congratulate each other for passing, eat, and dance to music. Miss Birch sees Mr. Glass flirting with another brunette student. Elsewhere, Redding takes the stage for an important announcement. He begins by talking about all the ways he has improved things during his tenure as governor. At the school, his speech is broadcast on a party television, and Blake watches it and leaves. As he continues to talk about how the thinning is not a barbaric practice but, on the contrary, is at the forefront of innovation and the effort to make the population the best it can be, the failed students are led down a school hallway. They are asked to remove their clothes and prepare for decontamination. Lena hides her key in her mouth. As Blake starts walking through the school corridors, his father announces his presidential candidacy. The failed students receive new clothes and are then led into a room with several rows of chairs. Each of them is handcuffed to a chair, and the guards around them prepare syringes. In the corridor, Black pretends to be injured and pulls a guard toward him, then puts him down. He then heads to the control room and sneaks inside after Mason has left it. He tries to use the system but requires a password, and then cuts the power to the school just as Mason discovers the unconscious guard. Some of the failed boys are released, and the guards try to regain control. Lena escapes during the chaos by using Miss Birch's access card to open the door. Mason asks that Kellen's father, Victor Woods, be sent to the control room to fix the system that's broken. Mason then checks the failed boys who are under control. He asks them if they've done a head count and finds out they haven't. They discover that Lena is missing. A guard notices Lena trying to leave, but she poses as Miss Birch and tells him that she was called when she saw a student running down the stairs. When he turns his back, she attacks him. Black arrives, and the two subdue the guard. Lena and Blake talk, and Lena insists there's no way she failed the test. Black tells her he intentionally failed, but his father got him out. Lena realizes something is not right, and when Black triggers the alarm, they climb a vent to escape. Mason decides the school will remain closed until the situation is resolved, even if it's past the time when parents were expected to see their children. He learns that another guard was attacked by someone pretending to be a teacher, so he orders all the teachers to be taken to a detention room. Redding's interview is interrupted by the news of the extended school closure, and the anchor asks for explanations. He hesitates without giving any information but insists that things will be resolved soon. They press him for details on the situation and he angrily tells them to fix everything quickly. Black and Lena continue to traverse the vents until Black falls from one of them into a pool. Lena jumps in behind him to save him and carries him to the pool's edge. They retrieve some dry clothes from lockers and change with their backs turned for privacy. Lena finds another vent and climbs up again. In the recreation room, the students who pass start getting impatient with the guards, and one of them beats a student. Kellen records the incident on his phone and sends it to Andy. Lena and Blake make it outside the room, but the key falls from Lena's pocket. With the key on the ground under a pipe, they enter a science room where Lena uses a magnet to search for the key. They make too much noise, and when a guard approaches, Lena manages to get back into the vent while Blake remains in the room, trying to hide. But the guard catches him. When Lena attempts to retrieve the key, another guard notices and takes it, but the guard turns out to be Blake in a guard's uniform. He tells her he's heading to the thinning. In the waiting room, Miss Birch suggests to Mr. Glass that they have a drink, and while flirting, she steals his key. She then shows her ID and Mr. Glass's access card to Mason to divert suspicion from her. When Mr. Glass is missing his key, Mason believes he's the traitor. Lena reaches the server room and finds a computer. She tries to use the key, but needs Mason's password. She sends a message to Kellen, asking for his help, but finds that he's disconnected. Kellen receives Lena's message just as his father restarts the power. He sends her a video recording where Mason types his password, allowing her to copy it and log in. She first checks Corinne's exam and is relieved to find that she passed with an 86%. Then she checks her own exam, discovering that she scored 98%, but still failed the test. Meanwhile, Wade passed with a 42% and Blake with a 15%. She then checks Ellie's score and finds out she failed but scored 88%. She watches the news report in which Redding claims that Lena, after failing the test, attacked multiple guards, killing 2 of them, and escaped. Meanwhile, Wendy watches the footage sent by Kellen, showing a guard beating a student who passed, and realizes that what's happening doesn't match the official story. She responds to Kellen and sends him the footage. When Lena realizes that Kellen sent the footage from inside the school, she sends him images of the scores. Then Mason and Victor catch her on camera, and she runs away. Blake finds the students and tries to deceive the guards into taking the failed students to the recreation room. But they won't take orders from anyone other than Mason, so they attempt to fight the guards. Lena is captured by Mason, who insists he has proof of her passing but sends her to the thinning, where she discovers that Blake has been subjected to it. Kellen receives proof of the scores obtained by Ellie and Lena on the tests and sends the images to Wendy. Wendy reports the documentation she received regarding the falsified test scores. She reveals that Lena failed despite getting the highest score in the school, while Blake, the governor's son, was promoted despite receiving the lowest score. Vince says that Redding needs to put an end to this and let Lena go, but Redding insists it's another move. Mason calls him to request approval to begin thinning, which he refuses, saying the list needs to be reviewed. After the changes are made, Lena is released, and she is told that she passed. She goes to Blake and kisses him. She is then forced to leave the room, and Blake is forced to sit in his chair. Wade is also taken there. With varying degrees of panic from the boys, the guards approach and inject them. Blake loses consciousness, and the school is closed. Lena finds her younger sister outside, hugging her with tears in her eyes. Miss Birch joins them. Kellen embraces his father with a smile. Parents whose children don't return home start to cry, while Wendy announces that Mason King has been taken for interrogation regarding his involvement in changing the results. Wendy's report continues, saying that suspicions about Redding's involvement were disproven when it was discovered that his son was among the students who failed. Redding announces that he will help with the investigation, and continues to use Blake's failure to make voters understand that he was just like them. A large truck approaches a new facility. The failed students, including Blake, are lowered into the building with a lift. They find a factory that manufactures the tablets used for the tests, where they are put to work alongside former students.